minutes. So if you're not right where the tree fell on the line, you might get a little blip in your electric, but it will stay on. Or it'll go out for a second and come back on. That is a much better system than having one where we have to go out and switch things manually 6 and 8 hours at a time. So distribution automation is going to make us a lot more resilient. Lots of poles, vegetation management, we talked about that. Trees are the #1 thing that cause power outages, and we are way behind on tree trimming. COVID is the principal cause there. We could not hire enough tree trimmers to do the work. So now COVID is clear, we're hiring tree trimmers, we have 3 contracts. Next. So vegetation management, that's what it's supposed to look like. The trees are not going to fall, the tree limbs are not going to fall. I know that I can look around the room here, and probably if I had you raise your hands, everybody raise their hands, say who has a tree or some vegetation that they say that's dangerous and it's going to fall on that branch and it's going to fall down and cause the power to go out. Everybody does, so we got to cut that vegetation back. Next. This is the thing, remember I told you we use satellite? Well, this is the actual image that came in, and here's the area, and these areas in pink and red and yellow. From the satellite, they said, these are the trees that are going to cause the outages, and we need to cut those first. So, our tree trimming crews are focused on the areas in gold and yellow, and the areas in red, and the areas in pink. We're going to cut the areas that are highest risk first. So it's some pretty high-tech stuff to make sure that we keep the system operating. Next. Drones, that's what the drones look like. We said inspected 3,000 poles. Next. I don't know if you can see this, but this is what the drone picture looks like. It's much harder for us to take a bucket truck and go up there and look down on it, but a drone can do this, and it can do it all day and send the images back. This red circle, if you can see it, it just easily identified. This is a broken piece of equipment. That broken piece of equipment puts your power at risk because it's supposed to protect that line. If it's broken, it doesn't protect it. So we know we have to replace that. And that's the kind of inventory we're doing. Next. Okay, here's another example. I don't know if you can see this. I'll pull it up afterwards. Here's a pole. You can see this. The whole top of the pole is rotted out. You can never see that from the ground, which means in a windstorm, that pole is very likely to fall over. Okay, and that happens all the time. That last windstorm we had, there was a lot of poles that came down. We would not know that from the ground inspection unless the drone did that. The other thing is it identified this transformer is about to fail because it's all corroded on the top. Wow. And we know that's an indication of it's going to fail, so we know we have to replace that transformer. Next. Vegetation, this is what we talked about. There's actually a pole here. You can't really see it because it's so covered with vegetation. That will also put the system at risk for increased outages because that vegetation will short that out. Next. Here's another sample inspection that is pointing out this transformer has failed and we have to go fix it. Next. You can't see this too well. Those cross arms, you know, the things that hold the wires up there. If you come and look at this afterwards, we'll scroll it for you. Both of those cross arms are completely rotted out. Frankly, I don't know how those wires are being held up there, but the next big wind that comes, those things are going to break off. So we need to replace all that. So this is just an example. There's some old infrastructure. So if you're wondering why the wind blows and the power goes out, this is why. We have the money. Next. This is a sample. We have a project scheduled. There's no years on here. We've already started in your area. So next. It's a 5-year project, but we're not waiting for 5 years. Like I said, our team has already started. They've already replaced 400 poles. They've already installed a number of the switches. They've already installed some transformers. Those smart switches, do I have the number up there? We have about 3/4 of those smart switches already installed here. I have to do 2,000 around the city, but we started here first. So I think there's about 109 of 150 installed here. So that's going to help us in the very short term. This is, again, just showing the root cause. 40% of outages are caused by trees, 25% are caused by wind. Again, when the wind blows, my power goes out, you're absolutely right. Because a tree or the wires touch each other and it causes the fuse to blow. That won't happen with new infrastructure, with insulated wires, with more fuses and more transformers. And if it does happen, a fewer number of people are going to be impacted. Again, this is not some kind of wild science. This is basic maintenance and basic electricity 101, and that's what you deserve, is a more reliable, resilient system. Next. So I have big numbers up here, but this is like $350 million of money. We don't need to raise everybody's rates to do this. We have the money to do this based on some increases we had a few years ago. So that money totals up to $1.2 billion to make your systems more reliable. When we are done with this, just the infrastructure, the distribution automation, and trimming the trees, your system will be at least 2 times more reliable than it is today. So it's going to cut in half, at least, the number of outages that you get. So we're very encouraged. We're underway. We're starting here. This is the model. We have a person at MLGW who's the quarterback for this area, and his name is Ben, and he's the guy designing and executing and responsible for this plan. And as soon as he's done with this, we're having another quarterback that's moving to the very next area that has the next highest number of outages. So I wanted you to know we take it seriously. As Councilwoman said, we understand. The thing that keeps me up every day is the fact that I understand there are people among us who have to make choices every day. Am I going to pay the light bill? Am I going to pay the rent? Or am I going to pay for groceries? And if you bet on groceries that week and the power goes out and your refrigeration doesn't have any power, then you don't need, quite frankly, nobody here needs, and some of the people who really need the most help can't afford to have just one more thing. Their plate is already full. I'm having trouble just juggling day-to-day life. And when the power goes out and something like this happens, it's one more thing, and I just don't need that. So my commitment to you is that we are going to move forward on this reliability. We're always going to focus on being affordable. Part of that means what we talked about earlier with financial assistance. And we're going to deliver results for you here. It's not just going to be all across the city. We're starting here. The other thing that's exciting I want to tell you about, and before I turn the microphone over, is LED street lights. So we know that it's far too dark and far too many streets here. We have a program, again, nobody's street light fees going up. We're replacing 77,000 street lights in the city of Memphis with LEDs. We have. Amen. We're doing it this year. By December, they'll all be done. We have 12,000 of them done now. 12,000 already done. We didn't start here, but we started in Westwood and Boxtown and in South Memphis, and we moved up the west side. We're up in Fraser and moving over to the Raleigh area, and we're coming back down. So, and there is on our website, MLGW.com, there is an LED street light. You can click on the map, look kind of like that one I had before, and see when it's coming to you. But based on what I know about the map, I would suggest that it's probably going to start in just the next month or two here. Probably this summer, you'll start seeing those LEDs going up in your neighborhood here. Okay, but for sure by the end of the year, because we're starting in the west and going to the east, and you guys are pretty far west in the city. It makes a huge difference in safety for driving, for walking, and in neighborhoods. Some people will call me, I know, and say, this is too bright. I'm sorry. I'll wait for those calls, right? And I'll say, okay, I'd rather start off a little too bright than not bright enough. So, again, I know there's other speakers here, so I want to be mindful of that. I can't tell you what an honor it is to be able to serve you, and that's what I'm here to do, is to serve you. And we are going to make a change. We're going to make a difference to make this utility more reliable for you, so you really don't have to think about us, except for when you write the check, I know. But really, that's the only time you should have to think about it. So with that, I'll stop, and I'll turn over to Martrice, who's going to talk about another issue that we have that was caused by no fault of anybody at MLGW, but some parts that we got when we changed out some of the meters. And I'll tee it up by saying, the meters are working fine, the utilities are working fine. Sometimes we just don't get a recording, like you might have used water all month, but it's not registering that you used any water. And so we have to figure out what's going on. Usually it's a broken part, and we have to go fix that broken part. So with that, Patrice, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you.